Hey everyone, Camille and James here, 88 Fitness Training. Welcome back. Today we have a great video for you on maximizing quad activation. So this video is for anyone that's looking to build mass specifically on the quads, but having a hard time with that mind-muscle connection and quad activation. So we're gonna go through common mistakes people make, how to fix that, and then a couple drills that can help you really establish that deep mind-muscle connection. So stay tuned, check it out. So there's three common mistakes that people make in general. So that's gonna be not full range of motion, improper form, and then the last one has to do with not having good mind-muscle connection or ankle mobility. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna take you through three exercises. James is gonna demonstrate them, and we're gonna talk about those three categories.
All right, y'all, the biggest problem I see, and you see it every time, every day, every gym, is not full range of motion.
Especially on the squats.
Especially on the squat.
So we're gonna start there for you today. James is gonna demonstrate proper form on the squat.
And it is a tough exercise. That's why you see a lot of people cheating the form and not doing full range of motion, because it's such a tough exercise. You see this a lot, 900 pounds on somebody's back and they're doing this, right?
Yeah, it's like not even a partial.
They might as well go to the club and start dancing with this one. So, all right, so full range of motion, you wanna go down as low as you safely can and then come back up, just like so.
So you at least want 90. We've had videos in the past where we've covered proper squat depth. James can get really low, which is great. And the reason you want full range of motion versus those partials is because you want to stretch the quad. We're talking about maximizing quad activation. You have to stretch the quad and squeeze the quad at the top. So you want to exercise it over that entire range of motion, getting the time under tension.
Yeah, that's a great tip, y'all. And pro tip, I'm very hamstring dominant. So if I don't get that mind-muscle connection with the quad, if I don't squeeze before I start, keep them engaged the entire time, right. Get them stretched at the bottom, pause, engage, back up, and then squeeze at the top, my hamstrings will take over. So get that quad mind-to-muscle connection, get that quad squeeze, if you want them quad gains.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one is not going full range of motion. That's the common mistake. So make sure you're hitting that depth. Now, if for some reason you can't hit that depth, then perhaps consider a different variation. So for example, hack squats, Smith squats, maybe a different type of squat is for you, so you can hit that full range of motion.
Yep, and check your shoes. A lot of people wear heels with their tennis shoes. You want to wear a flat shoe when you're squatting. It helps with your knee with the full range of motion. Just another pro tip.
Mistake number two is not using the proper form. So anytime that you're not in proper form, it's going to be very hard to fully activate and engage those quads.
Yep.
So James is going to demonstrate what proper form is. He's been doing it the whole time. But
proper form is full range of motion too, by the way. But we're going to show you some mistakes here. The most common one I see is too much leaning forward.
Yeah. People
get on the bar and they're leaning forward way too much. Basically, you're doing a good morning at this point. You can come up and then boom, right. That's a good morning. And a good morning is a hamstring exercise. Right. So remember, the more you lean forward as you squat, the more hamstrings you're going to recruit. Right. And we're talking about quads today, so keep yourself nice and straight.
Yep, you want that torso upright.
Just like so.
And that could be a challenge for a lot of people, either due to like a back mobility or a hip hinge kind of dysfunction, as well as ankle dysfunction there too, and we'll talk about that one particularly. So if you can't keep that upright torso, then you really do want to consider doing hack squats or Smith squats. And I personally have this problem when I squat. I have a hard time really flexing my back to bring the torso upright. So my preference is a Smith machine, because I can lean back slightly on that bar and still load it up and progressively overload.
Great tip. If you're having trouble, it's usually a flexibility thing. If you're having trouble leaning forward, number one, best thing you could do is get on that Smith machine because it keeps you in a straight line.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, you're in a straight line in a Smith machine, and it's going to keep you upright while you're doing it.
I mean, and you know, Smith machines got a bad rap over the years, but if you look at some of the, you know, successful bodybuilders out there like Chris Bumstead and the like, they're using the Smith machine to squat, and there's a reason for that. They're trying to build up those big wheels, those big quads, and it's really great for putting that emphasis back on the quad and getting the quad activation.
Yeah, she beat me to it. I think Bumstead does more Smith squats than he does free weight squats.
Right.
So keep that in mind. If you think you can't get a good workout with Smith machine or squats, you lost your mind.
All right, so common mistake number 2 is the improper form. So watch that torso lean, y'all. Make sure you're not rounding that back and you're staying upright. The last common mistake has to do with ankle mobility. So when you're squatting, there's a lot of dorsiflexion that occurs at the ankle, which means just pulling the foot forward. And this allows you to come down and hinge at the hips and have the proper posture. The problem is that a lot of people don't have that ankle flexibility.
Yeah.
So they end up with that forward lean. They can't really sit back like that. So one of the things that I recommend if that's you is a squat wedge. So this is going to place your heels slightly higher than the your heel slightly higher than your foot, ball of your foot. And that will help you get that mobility. So I'm just going to place this down here. James can show you. I'm not sure if you can see his feet, but hopefully. And so this will help you place your knees slightly forward of your toes, but in a safe position, and allows you to hit that depth without having knee pain, without having ankle pain. So it's very helpful.
Right. Another tip here is you're supposed to push off your heels. If you're having trouble pushing off your heels, laying or standing flat ground, this wedge will also help you push off your heels when you're going through this.
Absolutely. So yeah, ankle flexibility is really important. In fact, we have a drill at the end of this video I'm going to show you that will help you improve that if that's an area that you're challenged in. And sometimes people just have prior ankle injuries, like maybe you twisted your ankle or did something as a child, and you don't really realize it until someone points it out to you, but that is a weak point in the kinetic chain.
Better believe it. Stiff ankles is the most common reason why you're leaning forward. So work on that ankle mobility. We're going to show you how to do that here in a little bit if you're having problems with that.
Yeah. And then the last part is a common mistake when you're trying to get maximum quad activation is just not having the proper mind-muscle connection, that neuromuscular efficiency.
Yeah.
And that takes time to build. You really have to focus on it. James said it, a couple of minutes prior, when you're going into that squat, squeeze those quads, create tension in them, and then go ahead and squat down. Another thing with that I see all the time, people are just going through the squat motion. They're not squeezing and contracting those quads the entire time, especially at the top, right? So there's 3 phases of all lifts, right? There's the lowering, the isometric where you pause for a second, and then you stand back up. Well, you still want to have tension in those quads for all 3 parts.
Absolutely. Keep it going. Like I said earlier, flex them before you start. Keep them engaged the whole entire time, and then squeeze them again once you get back up to the top.
So definitely, if you want to maximize quad activation, don't just go through the motions of squatting down, standing up. Like, there's more to it than that. You really do have to focus on contracting the quads specifically.
Absolutely.
All right, so that covers the squat. Next, we're gonna move on to the leg press, and we'll go through some of the same common mistakes. So we're over at the leg press now. We're gonna go through the common mistakes that prevent adequate quad activation. So first and foremost, if you're not going full range of motion, that's your number 1 mistake.
You see this one all the time. This is my favorite one. I mean, guys are putting 2,000 pounds on this thing. Literally, they're putting 2,000 pounds on this rack and then doing this.
No good. I mean, remember what we said on the squat, right? Muscle has the most potential for growth when it's stretched and under load. So if you're only doing partial range of motion, you are cheating yourself. You are not going to get the proper quad activation, nor are you getting that time under tension.
Very good point.
you really want to come all the way down until your hips start to lift off that pad, like just shy of that, and then come back up.
If your hips start to curl up, that's too far. Right there, that's too far. Keep your butt on the seat and don't let your hips curl up, but stop just prior, like Camille said.
Right. And just like before, every rep has 3 portions. So you want to make sure you're hitting all 3 portions. And my best advice for you guys for quad activation is to actually pause at the bottom for a split second. So you want to lower nice and slow, pause, and then shoot it up, right? So that pause is going to ensure that you're not using momentum. And you see this a lot too. And I'm guilty of doing this too, especially when it gets heavy. You're almost bouncing it off of that bump stop at the bottom. And I get it, it's hard, but that means you can't control the weight, which means anytime you're using momentum, you're not actively contracting and engaging those quads. You've lost some of that activation. So
Camille mentioned the bump stop. So if this thing's all the way up, it's going to prevent me from going all the way down. I hit the bump stop first. So make sure you adjust your bump stop.
Right.
I have to go all the way down because I got pretty good range of motion here.
Right.
And I can go all the way down. I don't want it to hit the bump spot. Also, if you're talking quads, you want to put your feet a little bit lower on the sled. It'll target the quads more. The higher you put them, it's going to target the hamstring more. So come down, pause just like Camille said, but flex your quad before you push up. Pro tip. Flex that thing, boom, and then push up and squeeze at the top. Keep them engaged the whole time. Quad engagement.
You got it. Common mistake number 2 that reduces quad activation is going to be improper form. So, foot placement matters, y'all. James alluded to this a few seconds ago. He jumped the gun a little bit. But when you're trying to work quads, you really want to place your feet lower on this pad, because anytime you're up here, you're getting mostly hamstrings and glutes. And so, even for me, I think I'm pretty hamstring glute dominant. So when my feet are just in the middle of the pad, I still feel the hamstrings and the glutes. And I've definitely tried this. I've experimented where all I've done for leg day is leg press. And my hamstrings and glutes, man, I couldn't even sit down. So that tells me right there that if I want to target quads, I actually got to bring them even lower down so I'm hitting that quad.
Agreed, 100%. I get the same results. Middle and up, I'm feeling hamstring and glutes. Lower down to the bottom, now we're talking quads.
Right, so anytime you're down there, you're definitely going to get a lot more quad activation, a lot more quad recruitment, and then you can experiment with the stance. Like anytime you're more narrow with the feet, you're going to feel those outer quads. Same with more wide, you're going to feel inner quads a little more. So you can do different things to elicit different reactions. Another thing with the form that some people will notice, some of my clients will say, man, my lower back's killing me. And that's because they have a round, like an arch in their back as they're trying to bring that weight down. So there's a couple things you can do to correct this. You could either use like a yoga pad or even a foam roller. So I'm just gonna have James stick this behind his back right at the arch. And then that provides a little bit of support. That way you're not focused on that rounding of the back, you can focus on the quads. And that's what we want. We're here to really work the quads and focus on that. So there you go. There's common mistake number 2, improper form. So correct that foot placement, watch that arch into the back, correct those things, boom, more quad activation.
Only do this if you have an arch in your back. If you feel good and you're nice and flat, leave this out of there.
Right.
And roll like this.
There you go. All right, the third thing is really the mind-muscle connection here. We've already mentioned it. Pausing at the bottom is really going to help you focus on the muscles, but at the same time, you want to make sure you're fully contracting. So, you definitely just don't want to go through the motions of lowering and raising it. You want to focus on those quads. So, start with them contracted. Then come down, keep them engaged, pause, squeeze them again if you've let off, and then come back up. Now at the top, you really want to make sure you're not locking out the knees fully. So you want to stop just shy of full lockout and then squeeze.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. When you get to the bottom, pause, but keep them engaged. If you let them go, flex them again before you push them up.
And I gotta admit, guys, I'm guilty of that because the weight is so heavy. All I can think about is I gotta survive. So sometimes that, taking that pause to do that re-cueing is helpful. So before you start, say, flex the quads. All right, now you're gonna lower and you're gonna pause and you're gonna say, flex your quads. And then you're gonna push up and you're gonna say, flex the quads. So go ahead and just talk yourself through it, because I guarantee you, once you start loading up the weight plates, you are going to forget to keep that contraction.
Yeah, and at the top, it is a little bit tough to get a contraction without locking out.
Right.
But do not lock your knees out under this load, especially if you got a big one. Don't do it. You'll destroy your knees. Keep them soft and get the flex in there while they're soft.
But yeah, focus on that cueing. I guarantee over time, if you keep doing that at each portion, you'll just naturally keep them contracted the whole time. So, all right, that's the leg press. Those were the 3 common mistakes and how to fix them. So next, we're gonna finally move on to isolation exercise, the leg extension. All right, we are over at the leg extension. We finally got into isolation exercises. So we're gonna go through the 3 common mistakes that you see on this, and it's gonna follow a very similar narrative than the other 2, y'all. So first, let's talk about using full range of motion. What does that look like on the leg extension? All right.
All right, so you come up, squeeze. This is probably your best contraction you're gonna get for your quads. It's an isolation move, so you're only working your quads here when you're doing this. And you can come up, peak, contract right here. You want to come all the way up and squeeze as hard as you can. That's full range of motion. However, when you come down, you don't want the weights to touch. You want to keep tension on those quads. So the tip we got from Wesley Vissers, put your seat all the way back, regardless of how tall you are. Put it all the way back, so now when you come down, you're under tension. You don't hear those weights clicking, right? You don't hear that. You keep tension on the quad through the full range of motion, as opposed to getting dead spots when the weights touch. So now, go all the way up, squeeze as hard as you can, keep them engaged as you come down, and guess what? Now they're stretched under load.
You got it, you got it.
If you click the weights, let the weights hit, they're no longer under load. So keep them stretched and keep them under load. Keep the tension on the quads throughout your whole 10 reps, 6 to 10 reps, however many you're doing here. Just like so. Right,
so the common thing that I see with a lot of my clients is they're coming up, but they stop right here. This is not full contraction. They don't have maximum quad activation. You need to come up. Now every quad fiber in your body is flexed and contracted, and that's what we want, right? You don't want to leave any gains behind by coming to only here, right? That means it's too heavy. You either need to lighten it up or do something different so you can get that maximum quad activation.
Yeah, perfect rep. If you're not doing the isometric max contraction at the top, you're not doing a perfect rep, and you're only cheating yourself.
Absolutely. Talk about proper form. Range of motion is a big part of that, but there's other things too. Common mistake I see a lot of times when my clients are doing these is they won't keep their butt in the seat. So demonstrate what that looks like. Yes. Yeah, no, you need to get that butt back in that seat. It's almost like you need a little seat belt, but it makes a difference because we want to make sure we're flexed properly and stretched properly. And it's really hard to do that when your butt's not in that seat.
This is a great indicator you're going too heavy. Because when you push up, that's the first thing you're going to do when you're too heavy.
Hey, I'm always screaming at my clients, get your butt in the seat! But so that would be number 1. Number 2 is going to be foot placement. You want to have, them pretty, parallel. You don't want your feet too close together, and you don't want them too wide. You want them, so yeah, that's really close together. That actually elicits different responses to the quads. So if we're just talking about overall quad engagement, you want them about hip width, right? You don't want them super, super duper narrow. So that's the one thing. And then we'll jump to it. The ankle mobility is huge on this one. So we're talking proper form. When you come up, you want that toe pulled back towards you. If your toe is pointed, you don't have full quad activation. You need to pull those toes towards you and contract those quads.
Yeah, great tip. Put a lightweight on and try it with your toes this way, and then try it with your toes back this way. I guarantee you're gonna feel it a whole lot more with your toes curled back, squeezing those quads at the top there.
Yeah, and on this one, it's usually not an ankle mobility thing, it's just a cueing thing. People forget, it hurts, they don't want to pull that toe back, but if you want those gains, you want full activation, you want massive quads, pull those toes back, y'all.
Yep.
All right, so lastly, mind-muscle connection. This one's hard, you know? I think it's so painful doing these that a lot of times you're just moving that weight up and down as fast as humanly possible to finish your set and get out and stretch. But you really need to just endure it, embrace, you know, that discomfort, and really focus on full range of motion, time under tension, and contracting the quads the entire time.
Agreed. I mean, if you're doing straight set to 10, I'm going to make you squeeze that quad every single time. If we're doing a drop set or some intensifying technique, I might let you get away with burning through them. However, regular sets, straight sets of 10, regular sets for gains, the ones you're going to do 90% of the time, you better do full range of motion, you better get the mind to muscle connection, and you better contract at the top as hard as you can, or you're just cheating yourself of gains.
Yeah, similar to what I said on the leg press, really focus on that cueing, right? So before he starts, what do?
Flex.
Contract.
Flex.
All right, what do you do when you come up? You pause, flex, and then come back down, but not all the way, and flex. So another thing that helps with the mind-muscle connection is to focus on the breathing. So as you come up, you want to blow out all your air. So blow it out. All right, now breathe in as you lower, right? And if you focus on that breathing, sometimes you can get through that discomfort. But so same thing. So focus on the breathing, focus on the cueing to flex the quads.
It's gonna burn, y'all. And that burn is your mind to muscle connection. You can feel the burn, you can feel it in your mind. So embrace it.
Yeah, I mean, even with no weight, I could literally put that on the lowest peg. It burns.
It's gonna burn.
So no weight, 100 plus pounds, burn. There's no way around it. You just need to endure it and really breathe and focus on it if you want that activation.
That's what the gains feel like, y'all.
So we've covered the common exercises and mistakes and how to fix that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the ability to have a strong mind-muscle connection with the quad, you're still gonna have a really hard time contracting those muscles during those exercises. So this next part of the video, I just wanna take you through a couple drills that you can do either as your warm-up or after you're done working out to really help build that neuromuscular efficiency and establish that deep mind-muscle connection. So the first one is just gonna be an isometric quad contraction. So grab your yoga mat, sit on it, and you are just gonna contract your quads as hard as you can and hold it for 30 seconds.
Ooh.
So hopefully you can see that James has squeezed his quads, and pull your toes back towards you the whole time, right?
Good tip.
Yeah, so you're gonna hold this for 30 seconds. It's gonna be grueling, it's gonna be hard, and then you can relax. And you're just gonna cycle through that. I will go ahead and hit 10 reps of that, and you're gonna feel it, y'all. And this is what it needs to feel like when you're standing, you're doing those squats, when you're doing the leg press, when you're doing the leg extension, whatever it may be. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the camera so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. All right, so this is relaxed. James is gonna go ahead and contract. So you see all those different muscles engage. Relaxed, contract. All right, so doesn't matter who you are, what level you're at, everybody can do this. If you're still struggling a little bit, like James is doing, pull those toes back towards you, right? Flex those ankles. There you go. And it's hard. This is gonna burn. It's really a fantastic warm-up if you need to warm up, and it's also a great finisher, right? So I would actually do it maybe before and after your workout. A lot of times what happens with some athletes is as they work out, they start to get very pumped and they can't feel that muscle anymore. Yeah. So it's great practice to do it at the end. Like that way you still know what that muscle contraction feels like.
I don't know if y'all noticed, but my heels came off the ground when I'm flexing here.
That's a good tip too.
So if your heels are still on the ground, you're probably not flexing hard enough
right.
or completely. So your heels should come up, especially when you curl your toes and squeeze those quads.
All right, so that's drill number 1. You can do it anywhere. It really doesn't matter, but it's gonna help you get maximum muscle activation and establish that deep, deep mind-muscle connection. Drill number 2 is gonna work on ankle mobility. We're gonna do some dorsiflexion with a looped band. So all that means is we're gonna work on pulling that toe back towards our body, strengthen the ankle. So you want a loop band or something similar. You wanna anchor it and then go ahead and place it across the top of the foot. And you wanna let your toe point and flex, point and flex. So just like all the other exercises, do 6 to 12 reps on this. You're gonna feel it. Bands come in different tensions, but the idea is to really work on that ankle mobility and strength. So this is gonna strengthen your ability to dorsiflex that foot.
Yeah, you actually have a little muscle in the front of your shin here. I don't know if you can see it, but right there. So this is the muscle you're actually working while you're doing this. So if you get sore in the front of your shin, and that's why, it's that little muscle right there. See that little bad boy right there? Stretching and flexing right there.
Yeah, so actually it's that muscle right there that I feel when I try to squat and stay upright. So I probably need to work on a lot more ankle mobility, and this is a great exercise to make that happen. So just recap, if you're looking for building up ankle mobility, ankle strength, these banded dorsiflexion exercises or drills are another great one that you can do. All right, y'all, there's one more thing I just want to mention real quick before we go ahead and recap this video, and that is, if you're really struggling with the mind-muscle connection and getting that quad activation, think about the order of your exercises. So I would say 9 times out of 10, James and I are going to tell you to focus on compound exercises first because they're the most bang for your buck when you're trying to build mass. Now there's one exception. If you truly cannot feel your quads when you're squatting, when you're leg pressing, when you're lunging, then you need to start with the isolation, right? Focus on that isolation first because you're going to get the deepest contraction and you're going to have the deepest stretch on that muscle, which is, the perfect recipe for gains. And, if you can't feel the compound, what else are you going to do, right? So that's like the number one thing I would do in that case.
So the idea is to get your mind to muscle connection established with the isolation move and then keep it as you go to the compound moves. If you already got the mind to muscle connection, start with a compound move. If you don't, then start with the isolation. Start getting the mind to muscle connection, get it connected, and then keep it connected throughout the rest of your workout.
Right, absolutely. All right, y'all, I hope you've enjoyed this video. We went through the 3 common mistakes people make, which are not using full range of motion, not using proper form, and then usually it's a mind-muscle connection issue or an ankle mobility. So we took you through the 3 common exercises, the squat, the leg press, the leg extension, and showed you how to correct that. And then I showed you 2 drills. James demonstrated the isometric quad contraction, super painful, and then the dorsiflexion with the loop band. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. For more like it, definitely check out our leg playlist. And as always, like and subscribe. Camille and James, 88 Fitness Training.
All right.